The quiet passenger. The airport buzzed with life. Announcements echoed overhead. Luggage wheels rattled across tiled floors, and hurried conversations blended into a familiar hum. In the midst of it all, a family of four moved gracefully through the crowd, their presence commanding attention despite their silence. The father, Daniel Wright, wore a tailored black suit that seemed untouched by the chaos around him. Calm, serious, unreadable. Beside him walked his wife, Evelyn, dressed in a beige wool coat, carrying a polished leather handbag. Their daughter, Nyla, held Evelyn's hand while their son, Elias, followed with a compact silver suitcase. No novos, no raised voices, no rush. And yet, people instinctively moved aside. There was something in the way Daniel walked, and how Evelyn carried herself, like they belonged wherever they went. At the first-class gate, the airline worker glanced at their tickets without much interest. "Enjoy your flight," he muttered, scanning them in. Daniel gave a polite nod. Evelyn smiled softly. Nyla and Elias passed silently behind them. Inside the aircraft, the first-class cabin was already half full. The scent of new leather mingled with soft music and warm lighting. Daniel took the window seat. Evelyn sat beside him. Across the aisle, the children settled into their own row. No chatter, just quiet exchanges of glances and nods. They didn't look impressed or uncertain. This was routine for them. Madeline Sharp, the lead flight attendant, moved through the aisle with brisk efficiency. Her uniform was pristine, her posture perfect, but her smile, though practiced, didn't quite reach her eyes. When she reached the Wrights, her smile faltered briefly. Her gaze swept over them, lips tightening for a fraction of a second. Then she nodded and continued. A few minutes later, a man seated behind Daniel asked for water. "Of course, sir." Sparkling her still, Madeline returned with a bottle, a glass, and a napkin. Moments later, Nyla looked up from her seat. "Excuse me," she said softly. "May I please have some water?" Madeline didn't break stride. "We'll be serving drinks after takeoff, sweetie," she replied flatly and moved on. Evelyn placed a gentle hand on her daughter's arm. Nyla said nothing more. Elias, watching silently, narrowed his eyes at Madeline's back. A few minutes passed. Evelyn pressed the call button. Madeline returned with a tighter smile. "Yes." "It's a bit warm," Evelyn said evenly. "May I please have a small bottle of water for my children?" Madeline leaned in slightly. "As I said, we'll be serving drinks after takeoff. I'll ask for your patience." There was no warmth in her tone. Evelyn simply nodded and looked away. Daniel, silent until now, glanced at his wife, then slowly typed something on his phone and placed it face down on the armrest. The plane doors closed. The aircraft pulled away from the gate. Lights dimmed. The engines roared gently as the plane began taxiing. What Madeline didn't know was that she had just made the biggest mistake of her career. She walked the cabin, checking belts and tray tables, her mind wandering back to the Wrights. Something about them irritated her. They hadn't been rude, but there was a quiet dignity about them that she couldn't explain. Once in the air, the seatbelt sign turned off. Madeline began pouring drinks. Her assistant, Tessa, offered to help. Madeline waved her off. "I've got it." She served the first few passengers, handing out drinks with smiles. When she reached Nyla and Elias, she paused briefly, then skipped their row. Nyla blinked. "Excuse me," she said again, even softer. "May I have some water now?" Madeline didn't look back. "I'll come back to you," she said curtly. She never did. Tessa, observing from the galley, leaned over. "Did you skip those kids on purpose?" "They can wait," Madeline replied sharply. Evelyn leaned toward Daniel. "That's the third time." He nodded, picked up his phone, and typed another message. Up in the cockpit, the co-pilot's radio buzzed. He read the incoming alert and looked at the captain. "Sir, we have a priority message. Daniel Wright is on board. Seated in 1A. The captain stiffened. "From who?" "Executive Control. Founder Protocol." Without hesitation, the captain stepped out of the cockpit. He adjusted his jacket and walked directly into first class. Passengers turned. Conversation stopped. Madeline paused, confused. The captain stopped at row 1A. Mister, right? He said evenly. Is everything all right? Daniel looked up. Not yet, he said. But it will be. The captain nodded and walked back without another word. Madeline stood frozen. The man she had ignored, dismissed, and treated with subtle disdain wasn't just a passenger. He was the founder. The message went out within minutes. Tessa watched as Madeline was handed a folded note by the co-pilot. Madeline opened it. Her heart dropped. You are hereby removed from duty for the remainder of this flight. Proceed to the rear jump seat. No further passenger interaction. By order of Wright Aviation Holdings. Madeline stood in shock. Tessa tried to speak, but she couldn't find words. Madeline slowly walked to the back of the aircraft. Her legs felt heavy. Her hands trembled. Her uniform felt like it no longer belonged to her. Every passenger she passed knew. They didn't need an explanation. She took her seat. The engines hummed. Her ears rang. She opened her crew app. Access denied. Logged out. Then came the final blow. An email. Subject: termination in progress. Incident escalated to executive review. Ground team instructed to intercept upon arrival. Uniform to be surrendered. Her breath caught. She tried to call her supervisor. Denied. She tried a friend in management. Voicemail. Finally, a colleague answered. Rebecca, it's all over the crew forums. The founder's family. Everyone's talking. You refused water to Daniel Wright's daughter. She dropped her phone. Daniel Wright. Billionaire. Aviation mogul. Quiet, powerful, ruthless in precision. And she had ignored his family. Repeatedly. The descent began. She wasn't asked to assist. She wasn't asked to do anything. Passengers whispered. She was the story now. The flight landed. The seatbelt sign turned off. Passengers stood. She stayed seated. Tessa approached with a sealed envelope. Your packet. They're waiting at the gate. Rebecca Fields had once been respected. Now, she was forgotten. Daniel Wright stood and left without a word. His wife and children followed, composed, untouched by the chaos. Rebecca walked the longest aisle of her life. Outside the aircraft, 2 executives and a security officer waited. No ceremony, no sympathy, just an end. And in the terminal, Rebecca sat alone. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Sometimes silence says more than anger. DW. And with that, her career was over. Because respect isn't a favor. It's a duty.